Good afternoon, YouTube. Today I am watching a live interview with the Prime Minister over the WE scandal. I thought it very important to note down and save this conversation. So I thank you for watching, and I may interject with comments along the way, but thank you for watching.
To conclude, there was never any direction by or attempt to influence from me or my staff that the public service recommend we charity. Getting young people to serve has been a goal of mine well before I ever got into politics. So I deeply regret how this has unfolded. It's now July 30th. Our government is delivering an up to $9 billion aid package for students. Unfortunately, the grant for volunteer service is unlikely to be part of the package this summer, and that is something that I regret. I'm pleased now to take any of your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Before we go to questions, just for Mr. Morantz's point, and also for relevance, I would remind the committee of the original motion. As part of its study on COVID-19, we hold hearings to examine how much the government spent in awarding the $912 million sole source contract to WE Charity, and how the outsourcing of the Canada Student Service Grant to WE Charity proceeded as far as it did. On Mr. Morantz's point, and I think you are aware of this, Mr. Prime Minister, with the way questions work in the House of Commons, I call it the COVID-19 questioning experience, where each member is allocated so much time, and we will stick to the 6 minutes for the first round and 5 for the second today for questions and answers. But the process will be, if it's an 8-second question, we expect the answer to be 8 seconds, and I will try and track that on my iPad here. I may be a little off from time to time. So if we can, from both sides, so there will be no doubt interruptions on the part of the chair to the witness, yourself, Prime Minister, and probably to members as well, to stick to those rules. The first round of questions will be Mr. Poilievre, followed by a splitting of time between Mr. Fragiskatis and Ms. Kotrakis, and then Mr. Fortin and Mr. Angus.
I just want to note down quickly that interruption of the chair that he was talking about, that is the way that they protect the corrupt Prime Minister and his answers. And you'll see further on that when Poilievre starts to grill, and not even grill, just try to get a straight answer out of him, this guy interrupts many times.
Mr. Poilievre, 6 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Prime Minister. What is the total dollar value of all of the expenses reimbursed, fees paid to, and any other consideration provided by the WE group to you, your mother, your spouse, your brother, and any other member of your family? Just the total, please.
Minister.
Sorry, mute. I don't have that exact figure. Reimbursing expenses is something done by an organization, for example, so I don't have those totals.
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Yeah, what's your point of order?
Sorry, no, Mr. Speaker. My point of order is, what's the relevance of these questions of ancillary fees paid to family members to the official motion that you
I don't think that is a point of order, Ms. Zerwitz. Back to Mr. Poilievre.
So you're telling me that you don't know how much immediate family members have been paid in expense reimbursements by this organization?
My mother and my brother are professionals in their own right who have engagements and have for many, many years with many different organizations across the country. And I don't have the details of their work experiences or their expenses.
And what about your spouse? What is the dollar figure?
I think WE Charity has been able to share those dollar figures with you.
When was the last time she had an expense reimbursed by We Charity?
I believe it would have been for the trip to London where she spoke at We, but those expenses were cleared in advance by the Ethics
And
Commission.
how much was it?
Mr. Valiev.
How much were those expenses?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Mr. Prime Minister, it's very hard to believe you don't have that number. You've been embroiled in this scandal now for over a month, and these kinds of questions have been asked repeatedly. I asked it to you in the House of Commons weeks ago. You've had time to get it, so I'll ask again. How much was your spouse reimbursed by We for her recent trip to London?
Okay, to take an example, for a plane ticket that was booked for her flight to London, it wasn't something that she would have paid for to be reimbursed by
What about a
the We
hotel?
Charity. The We Charity would have actually paid for that ticket themselves, so we
Right.
wouldn't have those answers on our credit cards, for example.
So you don't have any idea how much the We Charity paid for your spouse to travel to London?
Over the past number of months, I've been involved in serving
How much?
Canadians and focused on that. But I know that the We Charity themselves have shared those expenses, and
They
you
have
had,
not.
you had the
Actually,
opportunity
they
to
have
talk
not.
to them.
They have not shared those expenses, Prime Minister. They have refused to tell us the itemized expense for that trip, and they didn't even confirm she was on that trip. What hotel did they pay for her to stay at?
I don't know.
Okay. This would have been a very expensive trip, and it would have been paid for in March. Your government then, a month later, was amassing a program of $500 million, which you now admit you helped approve a month after that. How could you possibly have believed that it was appropriate for you to approve a nearly $500 million grant to a group that only 60 days earlier was paying for sumptuous travels for immediate members of your family?
Mr. Prime Minister.
The Ethics Commissioner fully cleared Sophie's volunteer unpaid work with We, whether it's for her podcast or her appearance at We events or her work as a We ambassador and ally. It was all entirely unpaid, but they reimbursed expenses, and that was clearance that was gotten in advance by the Ethics Commissioner.
And did you tell the Ethics Commissioner?
Mr. Valiev, we're on equal time here, and the Prime Minister still has time. Go ahead, Prime Minister.
Obviously, that was not a concern for me, knowing that the Ethics Commissioner had approved of Sophie volunteering her time and having expenses covered for engagements with this.
And when
this
you
Back to
became
Mr. Valiev.
when you became involved with the decision to approve the $500 million grant to We Charity on May the 5th, did you then immediately inform the Ethics Commissioner that you were doing that, and and also inform the Ethics Commissioner that this group was paying expenses for your spouse?
As I said, the Ethics Commissioner already knew because he had approved Sophie volunteering with the We organization a long time ago. And secondly, my knowledge of We being involved in delivering this program only happened on May 8th, not on May 5th, as you are saying.
On May 8th, did you contact the Ethics Commissioner to seek permission to be part of the decision to approve this $500 million grant? Yes or no?
On May 8th, I received the formal recommendation by the Public Service that they go ahead with the We program, that they go ahead with the We program to deliver it. And I pulled it back from Cabinet and asked them to do further due diligence because I knew there would be questions.
I'm sorry, Prime Minister. Back to Mr. Valiev.
Time remaining?
You have about 68 seconds.
Mr. Prime Minister, you admit now that you should have removed yourself from the decision to grant this $500 million grant to the We Charity. You were found guilty of taking a free vacation from someone who sought a $15 million grant from you. Strike one. You were found guilty of interfering with the criminal prosecution of a Liberal Link corporation. Strike
Chair,
two.
point of order.
What's your point of order, Mr. Sabera?
The MP Poilievre has brought up some points that are not of relevance to this committee and the motion put forth.
I am going to allow the question, but Mr. Poilievre, please leave time for the answer in your 6 minutes as well. Go ahead.
Thank you. You were twice found guilty of breaking the Ethics Act before, strikes 1 and 2, and now you admit a third strike by your failure to recuse yourself, and in the process you broke the Ethics Act a third time. What happens in baseball when you have 3 strikes?
That's the end of the your round, Mr. Polyev. Mr. Prime Minister, you have about 30 seconds to respond.
As I said to Canadians a number of weeks ago, I should have recused myself, knowing the connections between my family and the perceptions around this issue. However, I did not intervene to make this recommendation happen. When the recommendation came forward from the public service, I sent it back to the public service to say, you really need to make sure that this is indeed the only organization that can deliver this program, and that this is done exactly the right way, because there is going to be careful scrutiny on this. At that point, instead, I should have recused myself, but I didn't. I decided to push back instead, and that I regret, because young people aren't having the opportunities they would have had this summer through that program, even though there's many other things we're doing for young people this summer.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll turn to Mr. Fragiskatis for 4 minutes and Ms. Katrakis for 2 on a split round. Mr. Fragiskatis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Prime Minister, for being here. First of all, Mr. Prime Minister, is there a personal relationship between you and the Kielburgers? Are you friends? Have you spent social time together? Have you had dinners together or anything like that?
No, I have seen them at events, but not outside of official or public events.
Thank you very much. I do want to ask you, Prime Minister, about the lack of recusal. Some have suggested that perhaps the recusal did not happen because the pandemic is forcing decisions to be made quicker than ever before. And when decisions are made quickly, mistakes are more likely to happen. First of all, to what extent is that a fair observation in your view? And second, if it is a fair observation, COVID-19 will certainly set the context within which policy is made for some time to come. That implies that choices about policy and programs will need to continue to be made very quickly. Are there mechanisms in place at the cabinet level or in other institutions of decision making? Are they in place to prevent a mistake of this kind from happening again?
First of all, thank you for the question. Obviously, yes, during a time of pandemic, things are accelerated. And as I said from the beginning, and as I've said throughout this pandemic and all my press conferences, we've moved quickly to try and get help out to people as fast as we could, as flexibly as we could, and we would fix those mistakes as we went on. So there was an understanding that if we waited until everything was perfect before doing anything, far too many Canadians would suffer, and because of the health emergency, even die. So we needed to act quickly. And that is certainly part of the context, but I don't think it's the whole reason as to why I didn't recuse myself. Youth issues have been something that I've been deeply involved with all my career, and I care deeply about the idea of youth service and seeing young people be able to help in their communities with organizations across the country. So this proposal mattered to me, and I, instead of encouraging it along, like some people say, because it was somehow connected to my family, I actually slowed it down and pushed back on it to try and make sure that everything was done exactly right, because I knew there would be questions asked because of the links to the family. But in no way was this benefiting my mother or my brother to be creating a grant program for students to volunteer in their communities right across the country.
Mr. Fragiskatis.
Thank you, Chair. A final question before I turn it over to Ms. Katrakis. Prime Minister, to the point about youth and the Canada Student Service grants, in principle, of course, a great idea, a great vision. I am worried, though, about whether or not the program will come to fruition. I've asked this question to Minister Morneau, to Minister Chagger, to the Clerk of the Privy Council. I know colleagues might accuse me of repeating myself here, but we do have you at committee. I have many constituents anxious to volunteer. I have many not-for-profits and charities in the community of London, Ontario that want that volunteer effort as they try to deal with the challenge that is COVID-19. Will this program go ahead? If not, why not? And the money that was allocated towards it, if the program does not go ahead, where will that money go?
To the Prime Minister, if you can keep it pretty tight, sir.
Okay, of course, quickly. First of all, young people are right now volunteering in their communities across.
Okay, I've heard enough of him. I'm sorry for interjecting, but I don't care about his responses. Let me just say that this guy strikes me as one who is... The worst thing about it is he's a professional liar that tries to use confusion in the situation, or I made a mistake in the situation, to justify his criminal activity. And he does so with a smile on his face and act like he's naive, but really there's a lot of powerful people behind him to coax him into doing whatever they wish. The WE scandal is nothing to do with the benefit of kids in coronavirus whatsoever. It's well established that the $900 million deal is not only a favor to friends, but that $43 million will be paid personally to the WE charity for, let's call it, favors in the past. It's well documented already that this guy is lying, and that his party, and I would even say the ethics commissioner, is protecting him. So in order for that to happen, the ethics commissioner would probably have to be a complete idiot or completely paid off by the Liberal Party, one or the other, because if you're ignorant to the amount of scandals. The other thing is, if the ethics commissioner had any power, he would be in prison. This guy'd be in jail already. Him, Morneau, and I don't know how many others, maybe members of the Trudeau family. Like, there should be a fine. There should be consequences. There should be resignations happening. If the government isn't purely corrupt, which it is, it's a hard thing to admit, but it is purely corrupt, right? Every branch, I would say, what the judiciary system itself is fully corrupted. The ethics commissioner has no power to put this guy behind bars, no power to raise, and even if they did, they probably get like some small fine, a slap on the wrist. They should be required to pay back that $43 million back to Canadians, and they should be forced to resign. So this is the first part. This video is already becoming longer. I'm going to continue this, and I thank you for watching. This is very disturbing to me as a Canadian. Thank you.